It's Wednesday. You all know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Life in the Movies podcast. I'm one of your co hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This week, Jacob and I are going to be talking about cinematic universes, and maybe they're going the way of the dodo bird, or maybe they're just growing stale. Who knows? But it's going to be a fun discussion, and we'll, of course, be continuing our Defenders coverage by covering the Defenders episode 2. But first, I have to introduce my co-host, Jacob Martin. What's cracking?
I'm doing pretty good. There's been some great developments in recent days. I've had some exciting opportunities, but life's been going very well. I've heard, Ryan, you just recently ran a marathon, it sounds like.
It was a 5K. So what it was called Run Daytona. So at the Daytona Speedway for this past weekend, it was a 15K, a 10K, and a 5K. I ran the 5K Saturday night. My personal best going in was 29 minutes and some change. I beat it. My personal best for the 5K is now 26 minutes, 12 seconds. I placed third in my age group. I even got a nice little plaque as a result of it, and a medal too. I got a medal too. So it was a very successful night. Small story though, because this kind of irked me at the time. But when I heard I was getting an award, I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll stay for the ceremony. But it took forever and ever and ever to get to the ceremony. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go get some food because I'm starving. There's a barbecue restaurant in the One Daytona because that's where the race took place. It took place in this big, like super outdoor mall called One Daytona. It's literally across the street from the Speedway. There's like restaurants and the luxury theater that I go to see things that don't come to my local theater. That theater is there. And so that's where all the festivities were happening. There's a barbecue restaurant there, and it's quite good. So I go there, I put in my order, and I'm waiting. And then I look out the corner of my eye. I'm literally about to check out to get my food. And all of a sudden, what's supposed to be my age group is up on the stage taking a group photo with their awards, and I am not there. So, yeah, that was fun. That was a real fun development there. But I've got the plaque, I've got the record, and I've got the medal, and they can never take that away from me. That's what matters.
That's good. I'm glad you have the skill and the body to do stuff like that. And your sounds like your collection of medals keeps growing and growing.
Another fine addition to my collection, in the words of General Grievous. But my next 5K is actually September 24th, so I believe it is the last Sunday of this month. It's the Parrot Head 5K. It's at a restaurant on the beach side called Landshark, and it's kind of, I think it's Margaritaville themed, which is sad because Jimmy Buffett actually passed away fairly recently. So I think it might be themed around that. I'm not entirely sure, but it's going to be fun. I'm practicing up for a 10K I'm running in October and a half marathon I'm running in November. And yes, I am crazy. But no, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a great time, and I will keep you all posted on what I'm doing with that. But I'm glad your life is going really well, Jacob. Mine is going well as well. Let's get into some movie stuff, though. Have you been watching anything interesting lately?
Um, well, I have been keeping up on the Ahsoka series. I don't know if you've been watching it, Ryan. Okay.
No,
Well,
I haven't, to be perfectly honest. I know,
okay.
but I'm kind of bad, and Ahsoka is one of my favorite characters from the Clone Wars, so I have no excuse. But I just hasn't won me over.
Okay, well, so there was a reveal that happened in like the last minute of last week's episode, and we're recording this on a Monday night, so I haven't seen the new episode yet, episode 5 when this drops. But there was a reveal in like the last couple minutes that like broke the internet, and fans were losing their minds. For Ryan's sake, I'm not going to spoil what it is. But man, I was excited by that final reveal, and I'm excited to see what happens next. I think Ahsoka has been a really fun show. it's a continuation technically of Star Wars Rebels. It's tying up continuing loose ends from when Rebels ended. So I feel like if you haven't seen that show, you might not get into Ahsoka the show, but as someone who's seen Rebels, someone who enjoyed that show, especially the final two seasons, it's been fun seeing these characters in the live action medium, and there's been some great action in this series, especially in this last episode. There's this really fun duel between Ahsoka and then this Dark Jedi played by Ray Stevenson, who I'm assuming this is his final role because he sadly passed away before the show was released. But his character has so much nuance to him. Like you can tell he's very passionate about his past life as a Jedi, but he has darker motives now. And there's just been some interesting things that he says with the way he talks and describes things, which makes the character so fascinating. It's another really good show. Um, I would say I think we're halfway through the first season because I saw there's 8 episodes, which is an improvement from Marvel 6, I would say. And I think if the last 4 episodes are really, really good, this might be the best Star Wars show. It might be better than Mandalorian, but I can't say that until I've seen the other 4 episodes.
No, I do appreciate you not spoiling anything, and I do want to watch the show eventually. It's just a lot of things is just a time issue as well. I've got big series coming to the channel that I'm preparing for, so Scary Mania is taking up quite a bit of time. So there is that. But I'm
Uh,
glad that you're liking the show.
I'm really enjoying the show. One thing I did not enjoy, on the other hand, I finally watched Disney's live action The Little Mermaid. I did watch it last week,
You poor
and
soul.
I don't think the film is hot garbage, but I don't think the film is that good either. I think for what makes it at least semi-watchable at times, I think Halle Bailey is good as Ariel. Like she commits to the performance. She sings incredibly well, and I want to see her in more acting roles because I thought she did a good job in the film. I forget the name of the actor who plays Eric, but I thought he did a good job as well. And I actually bought the chemistry of the two actors. So the romance aspect of The Little Mermaid was done fairly well. And even though I think they stretched the movie way too long, that's one of my big issues with the film. I don't mind how they developed the romance in this movie. It was done very decently. My problems with it, though, it's very similar to my issues I have with the Lion King remake. It's pretty much follows the template of the animated film, but it lacks the heart and it lacks the soul. And what makes The Little Mermaid fall short is that, unlike the Lion King, which at least has stellar visuals, the visuals in The Little Mermaid are a mixed bag. Some of the underwater shots looked very cheap, it, which kind of baffles me considering we just got Avatar The Way of Water distributed by the same studio. So the fact that this movie looks cheap in comparison, there's like no real excuse for that. Like I said, the movie doesn't have any real heart. Characters that I loved in the animated film did not translate well in the live action at all, especially Sebastian and Flounder, which look really off putting in this movie. I thought Melissa McCarthy was miscast as Ursula. I felt like she just made an impression, a really poor impression of the original voice actress, been doing something unique, and I thought she was painfully unfunny, and her rendition of Poor Unfortunate Soul was absolutely dreadful, in my opinion. A lot of the songs do not work in live action form. Like Under the Sea was just boring in this version. Halle Bailey sang Part of Your World with conviction, and that was like the one scene that worked for me. And some of the new songs weren't bad. like While in Charted Waters and For the First Time, I thought were well done songs written by Lin-Manuel Miranda. But considering this film was directed by Rob Marshall, who previously directed Mary Poppins Returns and Into the Woods, two really great musicals under the Disney umbrella, this movie, the musical numbers in this movie make him look like an amateur because they were handled very awkwardly in this film. And not to mention, the film features the song Scuttlebutt, which
I
is
was legit just going to ask you. You had to endure
the
the you
Scuttlebutt.
had to endure the scuttlebutt, which I'm pretty sure if the Geneva Convention were ever amended, that has to be like on the short list to be added to the Geneva Convention.
It's
That
that song.
song is
That song is terrible. Like
it's
I don't
like
know
when
what
I
Lynn
don't
was.
know how many Dante's levels of hell Dante wrote about, but that's got to be one of them.
It's awful. Like I don't know what Lynn Manuel was thinking, and clearly Aquafina is not a good singer because that was terrible. I don't know what was going on that one. That one. Whew, that's ranks as on par with some of the worst like direct to video Disney sequel crap songs. That was bad.
Like when the song was going down, I literally turned into Colonel Kurtz when he was dying in Apocalypse Now. The horror,
Ahora,
the horror.
ahora.
And you all think I'm kidding, but I'm really not. And I'll let Jacob finish, but Little Mermaid's not the worst by any means, but yeah, it's not particularly outstanding either. Feels like it feels like they were just remaking it just for the sake of we're running out of ideas. Little Mermaid hasn't been touched in a while. Greenlight it. That's
Yeah.
pretty much it. So I'm
I,
sorry, Jacob.
I
Sorry
pretty
to
much
interrupt.
feel the exact same way because even though I don't think this film is the absolute worst as far as their remakes go, it didn't insult my intelligence or anything. To me, this just came off as cash grab, the movie. Like there's no real reason for this movie to be made except a cheap way to make money because that's what Disney loves doing. And I was not that big a fan of it, but I mean, there's some that like it. More power to them. But aside from one really stellar performance, this movie hardly did much for me.
Yeah, one thing I will say though is that Halle Bailey deserves so much better because she makes the best of very subpar material. Her singing was pretty much the only good thing about that whole movie. I hope she gets better work after this, and I will leave it at that.
Yeah, for sure. And then also last week, I did a watch party with Henry Mockingbird, and we did a watch along on my channel. And I got to rewatch Fantasia, which I hadn't seen in several years. Uh, Interesting relationship with that film. As a kid, I hated it. I couldn't even get through 5 minutes of it because I was bored out of my mind. Though I had seen several clips from that movie and some of the Disney sing-alongs, particularly the one with the fairies. And I think it was like in the Christmas one. But over time, the older I got, the more I got into Fantasia, and now it's one of my all-time favorite Disney movies. So rewatching it again for a watch party with Henry Mockingbird, who's also a fan of the movie, was a real treat. I'm no real major fan of classical music. Like I respect the art form of it, but it's not a genre I would listen to if that would not be my first choice of music. But I thought what Walt Disney did in this movie was sheer genius. The fact that you have stellar 2D animation blended with classical music, and a lot of it is synchronized so well. It makes for one of the most visually dazzling, immersive movie experiences of all time. Normally I don't care for movies that much with that which has little to no plot, and most of the segments in Fantasia have no plot. It's just abstract imagery. However, Fantasia is the exception to the rule because I just love seeing the sheer talent craftsmanship of Disney animation put on display. The fact that this was made in 1940, no computers involved, animators working on paper by hand, and it looks this good and still holds up over 80 years later, just shows how incredible this movie truly is. How this was a true passion project for Walt Disney, and the music, the score is outstanding on all the segments. Of course, the Sorcerer's Apprentice with Mickey Mouse is iconic. You have the Nutcracker, which even though it doesn't tell a Nutcracker story, it's still done very gracefully. The Rite of Spring with the dinosaurs has a slow start, but it builds to something epic and has a really dour finish, which is really crazy for a Disney movie. And then you have Night on Bald Mountain, which has some of the most messed up imagery ever in a Disney film. Has some really unsettling stuff with the Chernobog character, which is pretty much a literal metaphor for hell, pretty much. But it's done brilliantly, transitioning into the very beautiful Ave Maria, one of the most powerful closing sequences ever put on film. I love every single minute of this movie. It's a work of art. You could take every kind of like what a lot of people say about 2001: A Space Odyssey. You can take like every shot from Fantasia, hang it on a wall, and call it high art. This movie is absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more on that last statement. This movie's absolutely gorgeous. It's one of my favorite Disney movies of all time, period. It would never happen again because, I mean, we get Fantasia 2000, of course, but this is a movie that would just never happen today. So it's kind of a rarity almost, and it's kind of beautiful in that we'll never see its like again. Like I love that. I love the spirit of that.
Yeah, to quote Robin Williams as the genie in Aladdin, to paraphrase, you can imitate Fantasia, and Disney's tried 2000, and then they had their imitators like Make Mine Music and Melody Time, but you can never duplicate the original.
No, no, you can't. But if that's all you got, then I've got a
I got
couple of things. So earlier today, I saw The Nun 2, which is the latest in the Conjuring universe, kind of parlaying into our discussion for the evening. And
got a question. Is it at least better than one?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
It was not good. And I was trying to like it because there are actually some good moments here. The first like 5-ish minutes are genuinely like, okay, that was actually quite good. And then and then it gets into the rest of the movie where literally every piece of dialogue in this movie is almost exposition, where you run into people who just are like here to explain things to you, like like who's going after what significance this has to later events in the story, and it gets painful at a certain point because I have no problem with exposition, but the problem is that the exposition in this movie was about as subtle as a brick to the head. You're just sitting there like, and they drop very key lines, and in the back of my mind when those lines would drop, I would just thinking to myself, we in the business call this foreshadowing. And sure enough, that is exactly what happened. I do want to shout out though Thaisa Farmiga, who is the sister of Vera Farmiga. In the Conjuring series, Vera Farmiga plays Miss Warren. I can't remember her first
It's
name, but
Lorraine Warren.
Lorraine Warren, thank you. And so basically, they're sisters in real life, but they play descendants in the Conjuring universe, if that makes any sense at all. And Thaisa Farmiga was good. So was Storm Reed, who earlier in this year was in a movie called Missing, which I absolutely adore, and you all should check out if you have not. But the biggest twist to me was seeing Anna Popplewell. Now that name may not jump out to you guys, but she was actually she was actually one of the Pevensey children, Lucy or not Lucy, but
I
the
thought she
older
was Susan. And she's
Susan
Susan.
Pevensey in the Chronicles of Narnia movies. And when I saw her, I was like, "Whoa, that's crazy!" I thought she had retired from acting. Turns out she's been in quite a few things. She was in Girl with a Pearl Earring. She was in let's see, I got her her letterboxed up. She's been in Mansfield Park. So she's been in a few things. And so it was genuinely nice to see her. And so between Formiga, Reed, and Popplewell, they are fine. The rest of the movie is just not good at all. And I in my cinema catch up for quarter 3, I will talk more about it there. But yeah, it's like they're just spinning their wheels with this Conjuring stuff. They just want to like keep making them because they make a lot of money, of course. So yeah, not particularly good that one. But
Yeah, sounds like I'm not missing much because it
no,
sounds
no,
like they made the exact same movie as the first one, the way you're describing it.
sort of kinda, but now I actually watched uh for my Scorsese month series, The King of Comedy, which is the movie that was very much compared to the Joker movie that came out in 2019. And now that I have seen both, I can definitively say that Todd Phillips definitely based a lot of the structure of Joker around The King of Comedy. So the bones are definitely there. However, here comes the hot take for the evening. King Comedy is kind of overrated, and I prefer Joker. Now, before you all kill me, listen to me first. I'm not saying King of Comedy is a bad movie. Far from it. It's very well made. Robert De Niro's great, of course. Jerry Lee Lewis is great, of course. I'm just very confused by the turns in this movie and just the direction overall. Not the direction per se, the technical side of thing, but just I was confused with what Scorsese was trying to do with it because is I don't know, like I'm gonna save up my reserves for when I do the review for Scorsese month in November, so I'm just getting out ahead of it now, but just it wasn't particularly outstanding. It was very well made. Let's not get that twisted. But just in general, I just didn't particularly I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. I'll have to get my thoughts around it. But overall, I wasn't a fan.
Hmm. Yeah, I saw The King of Comedy once several years ago on my channel. I did a director project on Martin Scorsese. It was one of the earliest ones on my channel. I think it was around the time The Irishman came out. And I saw it, and I think I think did I watch it before Joker or after Joker? I don't remember. I think I had already seen Joker before seeing King of Comedy. And I actually do strangely agree, Ryan, that Joker is better. But I do think The King of Comedy is a good movie. If I'm not mistaken, it's in my top 10 for Martin Scorsese. So I think this is one of his better films. I think this film has some high entertainment value. I think what Scorsese was trying to do with its story, especially with celebrity obsession, was ahead of its time. And I enjoyed Robert De Niro's performance in the film. And even the ending of the film, which I'm not going to lie, did confuse me when I saw it back then. The more I thought about it, I'm like, okay, I see what he was trying to do there. I think you can interpret it one of two ways. But the way I saw the ending, I'm like, yeah, this movie pretty much predicted internet culture and internet obsessions and stuff like that, where people can get away with crazy stuff. And I
Yeah,
felt like it was a brilliant movie.
that ending, though, I will say, that ending was actually pretty good. So I will give it that. But I don't know, as a stalker movie, I don't know if that's what Scorsese was trying to go for. It's very weird. And what makes it even weirder is that Robert De Niro played a stalker in a movie called The Fan. It was directed by Tony Scott and it starred Wesley Snipes. Uh, Robert De Niro plays a super fan of the New York Giants. Wesley Snipes plays their star player, Bobby Rayburn. He goes on a bit of a slump and gets benched. And so, in order to save his career, uh, the De Niro character ends up killing the guy who replaces Rayburn on the team, a young baby-faced Benicio del Toro. And so and so you kind of go with it from there. But just honestly, De Niro played a better stalker in that movie than he did in King of Comedy. But again, again, by no means a bad movie. I'm not trying to be like rage bait of Scorsese's overrated. No, I'm not trying to do that. I am saving my thoughts for the standalone review in November, so keep that in
Well,
mind.
I feel like Gene Siskel when he was shocked when Roger Ebert gave Home Alone 3 a positive review when you said that. But I'm not. I saw The Fan as well one time, and I didn't really care for that one. I feel like De Niro was overacting too much in that movie. That's crazy. We got two differing opinions on that, but I got more out of his stalker character in The King of Comedy. But I think that's interesting how we can look at two movies differently and get something out of it.
Yeah, but definitely saving up my thoughts, like I said, for the standalone review in November for Scorsese month. But continuing my continuing my kind of sort of kind of Spielberg watch along, I finally watched The Sugarland Express, which is that Spielberg movie that nobody remembers him directing, but it was his second film, technically, his first film in theaters, and his first collaboration with a guy named John Williams. You might have heard of him. He's done a few things you might have literally heard of. But The Sugarland Express was a movie that I had no knowledge of. And I knew that Goldie Hawn was in it. That was just about it. It's a pretty solid little movie. It's not one of Spielberg's best, but I mean, it's Spielberg, so most of his movies are fantastic. So some stuff has got to fall into the bottom tier. It's definitely bottom tier, but even still, this was a very enjoyable movie. He kind of made his own version of Bonnie and Clyde, if you really think about it. And I thought that was very fun. It's a big car chase, too. I really enjoyed that. It's a story about these two criminals, in a sense, in the form of Goldie Hawn and her husband, who is Walter Peck from Ghostbusters. But they but they're doing it for a noble reason. They just want to get their baby back and go on the straight and narrow so that they can have a normal family. Even though they are criminals, I liked that, and I liked the spirit of that. I even liked the cop that they kidnap, and he basically gets Stockholm syndrome and kind of helps them a time or two. Even the police seem to not really want to do anything about it, but they kind of have to. So it's not just a case of good guys here, bad guys here. It's very shades of gray. And I liked that. I liked the spirit of that. It also helps the movie was based on a true story. I don't know how much was upped for dramatic effect or how much was enhanced. I'm not sure, but this is a fun little watch, and it definitely at the end of it, I was like, I could definitely see people at the time saying this Spielberg guy is really going places, and they would have no idea what would happen next year because Sugarland Express came out in 74. 75 happens, a little movie called Jaws happens, and the rest is history. So Sugarland Express, if you can find it, watch it.
Yeah, I've seen the Sugarland Express. I've actually seen all of Spielberg's movies. I don't think this is his best film. I think it definitely, you can definitely tell this was early Spielberg. He wasn't fully there just yet, but it's still a decent movie. I definitely agree, Ryan, with the Bonnie and Clyde comparison. It definitely is Spielberg trying to capture the tone of that movie, even though Bonnie and Clyde's better. And I think the movie definitely has some memorable moments in it. Goldie Hawn, there's some good chase sequences, solid John Williams score. There's still a lot of good in this movie, even though it's far from his best.
For sure, for sure. But that's all from me. What have you all been watching lately? Let us know in the comments. Love to read what you have to say. Well, Jacob, let's get into Defenders coverage. Let's talk about the Defenders, episode 2, called Mean Right Hook. As a new conspiracy takes shape, Matt finds old habits are hard to break. Jessica gets in over her head. Luke tracks a lead, and Danny meets his match. So the crossovers have begun, Jacob. Power Man has met Iron Fist. Daredevil is now the lawyer for Jessica Jones when she gets in hot water. And it looks like Daredevil and Foggy might be building the bridges back. I hope so. Jacob, what'd you think of this episode?
Yeah, I actually liked this episode as well. Watching this episode, I was surprised that I was invested in just about every single storyline in this episode. What Matt Murdock was up to, what Jessica Jones was up to, Luke Cage, heck, even Iron Fist, like even his story is actually interesting for once. I wasn't bored by it. That was actually pretty good. I like that they're really embracing the crossover aspect of this show by even the supporting players of each respective show make their mark in this episode. It was fun seeing Elektra even show up, even though I wasn't a fan of how they wrote her character in Daredevil season 2. When she showed up, I'm like, oh, Elektra's going to be in this. I think there might be more potential this time after they left some things. That's neat. And it's cool seeing some of the defenders starting to cross paths, and I'm excited to see the potential of what that's going to bring. Believe it or not, the thing I enjoyed the most in this episode is the brawl between Luke Cage and Iron Fist. I did not expect that I would enjoy that so much, but it was kind of fun seeing Luke Cage punch the crap out of Iron Fist until he uses his powers, and we get the slow mo shot of Luke Cage's face getting busted up. I'm like, this is actually a lot of fun. You can
Yeah.
tell they were getting a lot of influence. You can tell they were structuring that similarly from the first Avengers when Thor and Iron Man had their little brawl. It reminded me of that a little bit. I'm not sure about the Sigourney Weaver character. Whenever it cut back to her, I'm like, I think they're building it up in a way that where I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm going to enjoy that or not. We'll see where it goes in future episodes. I still like that she's in the show, but I felt like I zoned out a little bit whenever she was on screen. But if if it props up into something epic, I'll eat my own crow. But as for now, I'm not fully sure. But overall, I really like this episode. I'm really excited about the potential of this series.
Yeah, I do agree with you on the Sigourney Weaver stuff, and it doesn't really help things that Madame Gao is literally in this episode, and she is more established. Like, she is well established as basically the hand's right hand, so to speak. Like, she makes sure that the wheels are greased for the hand to do its business. So, like I love Sigourney Weaver. I'm not trying to trash Sigourney Weaver here, but I feel like there needs to be more development there. All we know about her is that she loves her some Vivaldi and she is dying of a mysterious cancer. Like, that's about it. And might be heavily implied that she she might have lived longer than what we might think so, but that's about it. But we're only 2 episodes deep, so I imagine that they're going to reveal more about this as the show goes on. I sincerely hope. I hope that.
Yeah, we'll just have to watch. But a lot of the stuff I did like. I liked Matt and Foggy tying things back together again. That was nice. Uh, I like the camaraderie with Jessica Jones and Hogarth. That reminded me of some of the best aspects of the Jessica Jones show. It's cool seeing characters from other shows cross paths with other shows like Misty Knight on Jessica Jones Trail. I thought that was fun to watch. It was all around a really enjoyable episode, and I'm
Yeah,
hoping the show gets better from here.
yeah, me too. When the whole thing happened with Luke Cage and Iron Fist, and Iron Fist was like punching him in the gut, and I was just like, Iron Fist, my brother in Christ, punch him in the face. And when he did it, I'm like, oh wow, he listened to me. Because he literally has a fist that glows and can literally like punch through a brick wall if he needs to. It's like literally irresistible force meets immovable object, and the irresistible force won. So as brief as that was the best moment of the episode by a lot. It was a very enjoyable episode, but that fight, I had the biggest grin on my face because Luke Cage was just sitting there like, "We, you don't know me very well, do you?" And then Iron Fist is like, "Maybe I do." Bam! It just punches him in the face. So cool.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. If anything, we at least that fight was at least better handled than that poorly edited fight in last week's episode.
That's true. And another point I wanted to bring to your attention, I like what they're doing with Daredevil in that it's very clear he is trying not to go back to being Daredevil and is literally trying everything in his power not to go back. So much so that Foggy kind of can tell that he doesn't want to and is like, here's like a 6 month whole thing of cases. Go to town. And Foggy's kind of like being an accountability buddy, if you will, and trying to keep Daredevil like from not being Daredevil for a while. Like I liked that. I liked the spirit of that. I'm glad they didn't overturn the whole Matt Murdock like not being Daredevil. It's like, oh, one episode's over, he's back now. And like we see glimpses, but not a full on like he's back in the suit like kicking butt again. Like I'm glad they didn't do that.
Which I'm sure he'll be wearing the suit by the end of the
Oh, no
series, but
doubt.
they need to
No doubt, but I'm glad that they're
they need to do something in the show to make it worth him coming back in the suit than just, oh, I just got a case of cold turkey and I'm just gonna go at it just for the fun of it.
yeah, I'm glad they're giving this storyline a little room to breathe. I do like that. I do like the spirit of that. But I'm liking the Defenders' energy right now. We're a fourth of the way through 2, 4, 6, 8. So we're a fourth of the way through, and this has been pretty solid so far. But I pass it off to all of you. What did you think of the Defenders episode 2? Let us know in the comments. Love to read what you have to say. Well, Jacob, it's main event time. Let's talk about some cinematic universes and the kind of cinematic universe fatigue, if you will, because we were kind of kicking it around a little bit, or at least I was, and just I feel like looking at something connected to a universe nowadays, I'm not as excited for as I once was. I don't know, maybe it's an overexposure thing. I'm not entirely sure. But looking down the road, there's stuff a part of like different universes, like non-MCU, non-DCEU, that's a part of a universe that I'm at least interested in. So I thought that would be a fun discussion. So I mean, and we're gonna try and not to do just a whole big MCU thing, even though MCU is the most successful cinematic universe going. That's still going. Let's not forget that. I feel like there's the MCU and then the DCEU, which needs to reboot after this year, after Blue Beetle and Aquaman 3, which, spoiler alert, that movie does not look, or not spoiler alert, but side note, that movie does not look good at all, at all, at all, at all. But DCEU needs to reboot with James Gunn. And then kind of the failed universes. We had the Dark Universe. Y'all remember the Dark Universe? With the Tom Cruise mummy movie that was a piece of crap. It just I don't know. Is it like just a universe fatigue or just the quality going down? I don't know, Jacob. What do you think?
There's a lot to unpack with all this because I have a lot of thoughts on this. The idea of a shared universe is actually really cool. And I love what Marvel has been doing with that. They're like the only one that really cracked the code. We're able to take these characters, combine them in a universe, do a cool team up movie, and keep growing and growing the universe. And honestly, had the MCU stopped with Endgame, it'd be one of the best film franchises of all time. And Endgame would have been an amazing conclusion. Not that the movies they're making now are bad by any means, but I think they hit their peak with Endgame. There's still been some good ones, but I feel like Marvel's gotten a little too big for their britches to where it's hard getting fully committed to the stuff that they've been putting out because it's just so much between the massive movies, the TV shows that have come out, random one-off specials that might not be tied into an Avengers movie, but it's in the MCU and you gotta watch it because it's Marvel. It's I'm not saying I'm fatigued by that per se because I still get excited whenever new Marvel stuff comes out. I mean, I loved Guardians of the Galaxy 3 this year. That was a great film. And there's some upcoming ones that have a lot of potential, especially the new Deadpool film coming out. But I think I think we're at a point now where I think people are tired of the same old, same old. Some of the movies that have come out post Endgame, I think people see, okay, I think comic book films in general, there's a formula. And if it sticks to the formula and it doesn't do anything, it stands out, people aren't interested in it. Even Quantumania from Marvel, a movie I actually liked. I actually thought it was an enjoyable movie, but other people thought it just felt like a standard MCU comic book movie, and the film disappointed at the box office. And don't get me started with DC because man, I wanted to root for the DCEU, but I think between the different like constant studio meddling and different higher ups going in, they just could not commit to it like Marvel did. And the sad thing is they had some good movies. Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, the Snyder Cut of Justice League, Shazam was really good. They had some great ones in there, but they just couldn't commit to a universe. And while there's been great movies made by great directors, it just did not feel cohesive. And then that's why the DCU fell apart between that and the toxicity of it all. I do hope that James Gunn will breathe new life into the shared universe with what he's got cooking. And James Gunn is hot fire right now. Directed an amazing trilogy at Marvel. The Suicide Squad over at DC was really good. And I'm excited as much. Again, I'm still bummed that we don't have Henry Cavill as Superman. That was like a big blow. But I'm still excited to see what he'll have cooking with Superman Legacy nonetheless. I think he's gonna have a I think he's gonna have a cool vision with Superman, and I'm excited and very open to what he's gonna bring. And it sounds like he's gonna bring the hopeful energy to the Superman character that so many fans want. But I'm also excited for the other stuff he's got cooking as well. So I don't think the idea of the shared universe is fully dead. I just think Marvel needs to work on bringing it back to the high quality that they had in the past while also trying new things. DC just needs a share. DC just needs a vision. Marvel has Kevin Feige. Now we got James Gunn. I think they'll be really good, but it's an interesting discussion for sure.
Yeah, see, the thing about the DCEU was that they tried to do what the MCU did, but faster. And you can't rush something like that. The first Iron Man came out in 2008. We didn't get the Avengers until 2012. That was 4 years. And so they took the long road and it ultimately paid off for them. And of course, there's a lot to do with Jon Favreau, who directed the first Iron Man, which, I mean, first Iron Man is still among the best of the MCU. You cannot change my mind on that. You got the original Thor, directed by Kenneth Branagh, which I think that movie gets better the more that time passes. Then you got the Avengers, the first Avengers movie, not like Endgame or any of that. The first Avengers movie, which is a movie I still unironically love. So it was basically taking like the slow road, but they eventually got there. And I feel like with the DCU, it was like, all right, here's Superman. Now he's facing Batman. I'm like, it's only been a few years. So, like, first introduce Superman, then Batman, and then if you want to introduce the rest of the Justice League, do that, and then have them start crossing over. I've had an idea in my head to do a video like how I would make the DCU. Like I've had it in my head for a while. I don't know if I ever want to do it because I don't want to come across as like a know-it-all because I promise you I am not. But I don't know, Jay, would you watch a video like that? Or
Um,
it's okay if you
I'd be open to watching a video like that because I'm sure you doing it, you'd be open minded about it, and you wouldn't be a toxic, whiny fanboy. You would just say, "Hey, look, the DCU is flawed. If I was in charge, this is how I would have done it." And how would you have done it? Kind of like that. It'd be all for fun. It's not be like, oh, DC sucks. You all suck. I'm better than all you. I got my plan and I'm sticking to it.
honestly, that was more subtle than some of the arguments I've seen on the subject. But yeah, I have a plan, and I think I would like to do that video maybe sometime later this year, maybe before the year goes out, but let's cross that bridge when we get there. But
Yeah.
excluding MCU and DCU, I want to explore some of the other universes that did fail. Like, let's talk about the Dark Universe because I distinctly remember, and let's keep in mind, I love the Universal monsters like Dracula, Frankenstein, Mummy, Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon. A modern interpretation of that, I thought would have been outstanding. But no, the Mummy movie that we got in 2017 was just completely terrible. And it was very obvious like that's what the end game was because there's literally a scene where Tom Cruise is being walked to see Dr. Henry Jekyll because he's the Nick Fury of the universe, you see, and you see Dracula's skull, you see the hand of the creature from the Black Lagoon. I think you see like a claw from like the Wolfman or something. It is so cringe, and it's so obvious that that's what they were trying to do, and it didn't even make it past one movie. And so as though is like it's just this big what if. All we get like is that one photo of Tom Cruise and Johnny Depp and all of them sitting in like that position and just like we'll never see the light of day.
Yeah. The sad thing is, The Mummy had so much potential to be a good movie. And I think if it had stuck to its horror roots, the film would have been amazing. But no, you got a miscast Tom Cruise trying to inject action into it because it's Tom Cruise, and you got the clearly rushed job of trying to cram in as much shared universe crap into this movie, especially with Russell Crowe, that the film just deflated because of that. And it it failed as an action movie, it failed as a horror movie, it failed as a shared universe movie. It should have did the steps Marvel did, focus on making a good mummy movie first. And they didn't even do that right. It
You,
was bad.
you know, kind of similar to my DCEU video idea, I have a video idea where I book the Dark Universe, and it kind of centers around a fictional terrorist organization. And Dr. Jekyll basically says, I have a group who can take them on. So, like, fictional monsters versus real monsters. Again, it's just half-baked idea. I think I'd like to make a video on it one day, but I don't know. I think it'd be better than what we actually got.
Yeah, for sure. But at least we got it was a one-off, but it was still a great movie. You can still do good modern interpretations of classic monster movies. That Invisible Man movie that Lee Winnell directed, that movie was great.
Fantastic. It was
That
fantastic.
was the I thought that was better than the original movie, which might be a hot take. Like that movie took the concept of the original movie and made it 10 times scarier with it being a stalker movie.
Absolutely. And I pulled up an article with all of the canceled Dark Universe movies. We were supposed to get a Van Helsing movie starring Channing Tatum, which I wouldn't have turned down. That sounds promising. We would have gotten a sequel to that Dracula Untold movie that we got in 2014. Uh, we would have gotten a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde movie with the Russell Crowe. We would have gotten an Invisible Man movie starring Johnny Depp, which, considering what we know now, probably would not fly. And the Invisible Man movie we ended up getting with with Lee Winnell directing it was fantastic. So I'm glad we got what we got. There would have been a Phantom of the Opera, not the musical, but like the Lon Chaney Sr., like that one remade, and as well as the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and not the Disney musical either. That would have been like again Lon Chaney, very much taking it back to those roots. The Rock was supposed to be the Wolfman. There was a Creature from the Black Lagoon movie scheduled,
Wasn't there
which
also supposed to be a Bride of Frankenstein movie with
starring
Angelina Jolie?
Angelina Jolie. Yes, I was just coming to that. But John Carpenter, Peter Jackson, and Ivan Reitman were approached to do that Creature from the Black Lagoon movie. That never saw the light of day. The closest we ended up getting was The Shape of Water from Guillermo del Toro, which is pretty much a Creature from the Black Lagoon movie, just with a kind of a different coat of paint. We would have gotten a Mina Harker movie, which, of course, let's give the wife of Jonathan Harker a movie because why not? But again, it's a big what if because I love the Universal monsters and I think modern they could work in the right hands, but I don't know. I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, that was definitely a missed potential right there, and they
But
botched it big time with one movie.
pretty much, yeah. But we actually do have a couple of universes that are still going. They don't have as much fanfare, but they're still going. Like Conjuring, that's still ticking for better or for worse. Let's see. We got the Transformers movies. They're still trying to do something. And with the like, have you seen Rise of the Beast, Jacob? Can
I
I?
have not seen Rise of the Beast, but I know the post credit scene. They're trying to share a universe with GI Joe. It sounds like.
Yeah, the Mattel cinematic universe, which I'm honestly shocked that that they actually got it off the ground because I remember hearing about it years and years ago on Collider Movie Talk. I'm like, that's dumb. That'll never happen. And sure enough, like it was supposed to be something like a Barbie and a which we got a Barbie movie, but not in the sense of what it ended up being, but like a Hot Wheels movie and a Micronauts movie, and just none of those ever worked. So it's looking like they're trying to do something with it. Will it work? I guess we'll just have to see about that. But one universe I wanted to bring up that I love, and I don't think anyone else really does, is the MonsterVerse. We got Godzilla versus Kong a couple of years ago. We're getting another Godzilla versus Kong movie in, I believe, next year or the year after. But Apple TV Plus just released a trailer for a new series that ties into it, starring Kurt Russell, which that has a lot of promise there. So I feel like I feel like I'm the only one, but I unironically, I really enjoy the first Godzilla movie from 2014. I get why people don't like it. Doesn't have enough Godzilla. I think they saved him up to where when you do see him, you're like, uh-oh, here we go. And so I feel like I feel like people are overly harsh on it. I get why people don't like it. Kong Skull Island, I thought was great. I think that was a lot of fun, and I thought Godzilla versus Kong was pretty good as well. That and King of the Monsters, I can see why people didn't like it, but it's like we got in the year of our Lord 2018, we got Godzilla facing off against King Ghidorah. As a big fan of like the old school Godzilla movies, I was there for all of that. And so, give me triple helpings of all of the MonsterVerse stuff. So again, I might be alone on that, but I'll die on that hill. I love the MonsterVerse.
Yeah, I like the MonsterVerse as well. The only one I didn't like was Godzilla 2014, mainly because it was slow. There was hardly any Godzilla. When we did get him, it was poorly lit, and I couldn't see half the movie. And I thought the film was a massive waste of time. But the other movies I really like. King of the Monsters has flaws, but it at least has more Godzilla action. Although the human characters are incredibly stupid in that movie, that's like the big turnoff. Uh, Godzilla versus Kong was fun. Again, the monster action in that movie was awesome. Love Kong Skull Island. That one's my favorite one of the bunch. It's baffling that they're doing a show on Apple Plus. Warner Brothers, get your act together. I don't know why you would drop it there, a service that hardly anyone watches. I don't get that. But
Actually, let me double check. I'm second guessing. Let me double check on that.
what the show?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I got it right because I did remember seeing Kurt Russell. I did remember seeing that. And also I also want to shout out Godzilla Minus One from Toho. They're actually releasing that later this year from the original Japan studio. They're releasing that later this year. I hope to see that. But yep, Apple TV Plus. It's called Monarch Legacy of Monsters, which again, out of all the cinematic universes, I do like how they're kind of doing it with the Monarch thing. I kind of liked that. And in the lead up to King of the Monsters, they had this website where you could go and like people would send in like monster sightings. Again, it was all really weird looking clouds and stuff, but I liked it. I thought it was cool. But yeah, hopefully there's some steam left in the Monsterverse train.
Yeah.
It would be crazy if we get Gamera, like a flying giant turtle. That would be just insane if they if they introduce Gamera. It would probably never happen,
Uh,
but I would be
well,
there for it.
I don't know. It sounds like you're the bigger super fan of those monster movies. I just see them as like dumb fun monster flicks. They're enjoyable, but they're not like my all-time favorites or anything. I'm glad that you're reveling in this universe, and I'm glad that I'm happy for you. And hopefully, you'll get those movies.
Hope so too, but yeah, it's like with cinematic universes, like there's Marvel. It's like the whole perception is unless you're Marvel, you're just not doing it right. When MonsterVerse is clearly doing something right, because I remember like Godzilla versus Kong came out, and just that was when theaters were just opening up, and that movie like just cleaned up mainly because it was like movie theaters are open again. Let's go. So that had a lot to do with it, but it was still a really fun movie overall. So MonsterVerse has got some steam going. At the end of the day, I don't think there really is a set formula. It's just about quality. And the MCU has lasted this long because of its overall quality. It's had some dips, sure, but I think overall the loyalty is still there to the point where they can take like certain like dips and then they can bounce back. But I don't know with the whole thing with Jonathan Majors, which won't get into that here, but with that whole legal issue, I don't know. Like it feels uncertain, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah. I can't fully comment on that one either. That's just we'll have to wait and see on that one where they have to recast or not. But I think I think for me with Marvel, I think a lot of it is more so the fact that you had a great run from Iron Man to Endgame, and I think a lot of people are turned off by like the oversaturation of Marvel. I'm a little bit burned out by it, but I'm still interested in where it's going. Like the multiverse stuff intrigues me. I enjoyed Quantum Mania. I love Multiverse of Madness. No Way Home was, in my opinion, the best post Endgame Marvel film. Still is, and I'm excited for Loki season 2 because I enjoyed the first season. There's still some stuff I'm excited about in Marvel. Yes, they've had their dips. Secret Invasion had a lackluster finish. Moon Knight had a great start but a terrible finish, and I ain't talking about She-Hulk. But there's still some exciting stuff that Marvel's doing that, even though people want to brush them off, I still gotta give them credit for at least still trying with a lot of their movies, even if some of them don't work. Thor: Dark World had some entertainment value, but it fell flat. Eternals, it was ambitious, but it's it's not really that rewatchable, and it came off as a bit pretentious at times, even though I think it was better than most people gave it credit for. But what I'm saying is, I like I still like what Marvel's been doing, even though they have way too many new characters and it's confusing what their end goal is. But I'm still intrigued by where they're going with Kang and the multiverse stuff. And I think if Secret Wars pays off, then you should just end it right there. That's just me.
Yeah, I agree, but I think we can pick this up at a later date, but I think we can put a pin in it for right now. But I pass it off to all of you. Are you sick of cinematic universes, or is it just a matter of like it just overall quality? Let us know in the comments. Love to read what you have to say. And that is another episode in the books. Jacob, thank you so much. It is a privilege as always. Tell the people where they can find you.
They can find me on Letterboxd, Twitter, and Facebook. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel where I do movie reviews and other fun stuff. Coming on my channel this week, I'll be doing my Celebrating Disney review of the Disney Channel film Leroy and Stitch. And I will also be uploading my review of Secret Invasion, one of the recent Marvel shows that came out, which I briefly alluded to. So that's some of the things I've got coming up. And then, of course, some other live streams throughout the remainder of September. Be on the lookout for that coming soon. And yep, I'm still grinding along a little bit.
Yeah, Jacob's channel is linked in the description. Go give him a subscribe there. And as for this channel, I want to thank all of you who watched the Small Talk watch party last night for the season 1 finale of that show. The replay is up on the channel if you would like to go check that out. On Friday, Saw 10, or not Saw 10, but Saw the final chapter. That review will be up on the channel, so go check that out. And yeah, Scary Mania in October, Scorsese month November, and Chris Mania in December. A lot of stuff coming to the channel. So if you have not subscribed, do the thing. Click the bell to allow notifications. Leave a like on this video. We do this podcast every Wednesday, so stay tuned for that. But for Jacob Martin, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you in the next one. Y'all take care.